beggar, the site was sold for 400 million to a property developer who was then NAMAD, and we took over the loans of that property developer consortium. Now the government are saying they're going to fast track the development on that site for 3,000 private houses, and hopefully 10% will go to social housing. Well, that does say it all, and it begs the question, why does Simon Coveney say that? What motivates a Minister for Housing in the middle of the biggest crisis for housing in the state? The reason is political. This government, the previous governments, and governments going right back to the 1980s took a political decision to privatise social housing, and that is what they're continuing to do. It has become a private commodity and not a human right. And that is why today we have a crisis. In the 1960s, the Vietnam War movement used to march on the street and demand that the government call it what it is. At that time they meant call it the system creates wars. Well, I think today we have to call this what it is. It's an emergency, and they must declare a housing emergency. Instead of doing that, Enda Kenny made regular visits to America, where he met vulture funds and vulture companies and enticed them to come to Ireland to buy up the toxic debts and the property that go with it. So what we have is tens of thousands of properties being sold for a song, literally for a song, to multinational global corporations who are making a fortune out of the misery of the people on the housing list. Nearly 100,000 families, the homeless, which in this city alone is crawling up every day at a huge rate. You've heard the testimony here today. I couldn't say it the way the people have done. But what I can say is that there are very simple demands we need to make on this government, and they do make political choices. It's not an accident. It's not just systemic that things don't happen fast enough. It's a political choice not to build social housing, not to look after the homeless people, and to push everything into the private developers to make profit. And what we're saying here today is declare that emergency. That will allow you, like you declared an emergency when you took the money from the nurses and the doctors and the teachers during the crisis. They passed emergency legislation to take money out of their wages and pensions. Pass emergency legislation now. Tell the European Union to go to hell with their fiscal rules. We're borrowing on the market to build social housing for our population. That would be a start. And those resources could be used like that. There are hundreds of empty properties, probably thousands of empty council properties in this country that should be immediately opened up and refurbished. NAMA has tens of thousands of properties. That's our property. That's our money. We need to take that back. Rent controls need to be implemented immediately. And vacant site levies and evictions should be all sorted out. It is not rocket science. But the first thing the government have to do, and I know it's the demand of today's march, is to declare a housing emergency, break the fiscal rules, look after the population, the travellers and the refugees and the homeless. Everybody who lives here has a right to be here and has a right to be housed.
Thanks, Brid.